Good day, boxing fans. A few days ago, there was a video that popped up on SA Boxing Talk, an interview of Ricardo, a Magic Man Malajika, the two-time IBO champion. And he said in the interview that he's the best fighter in South Africa. I like that. That's confidence. He is definitely the most improved fighter in South Africa, and he's really riding high at the moment. But he said he's the best fighter in South Africa, as every fighter in his position should believe. But there was a lot of stuff on social media and back and forth, and people arguing with each other and saying, nah, he's not the best fighter in South Africa, because what about Phumelele Kafu, our major world title holder, who was a WBO world champion in the junior bantamweight division, and some even brought up other names here and there, and others says, no, Malajika will beat Kafu if he gets a chance. And there was a big debate about this. So I thought I'll do this video and just share my thoughts on who do I think is at this moment South Africa's best active pound for pound fighter right now. Not going into the archives and all time. Right now, who's active at the moment? Who among our active fighters is pound for pound the best in South Africa? If you're interested in hearing my thoughts and sharing your views in the comment section below, then stick around. Now, right now in South Africa, who do we have at the world level? Okay, as far as the big four sanctioning bodies, WBA, WBC, IBF and WBO, we have two world champions of them. One is Phumelele Kafu, who is the WBO junior bantamweight champion of the world. And the other one is sort of a tricky one with an asterisk, and that is of course Kevin Lerena, who is the WBC Bridgerweight champion of the world, and that's the 224-pound division, basically for between cruiserweight and heavyweight. That's only recognized by the WBC and WBA. So a recognizable organization in a weight division that not everybody recognizes. And he's going to be defending that soon, and that'll be a subject of another video. Then, of course, we've got boxing's fifth sanctioning body, that's sort of knocking on the door. Still, most of the boxing world does not recognize the IBO as a bona fide world sanctioning body, but they have some good champions, and they are a title that is a good stepping stone into the big four. Now there we've got junior flyweight and Phumelele Chabalala, and we've got welterweight Thulani Mbenge, who's made a comeback of note, and we have of course Ricardo Malajika, who won that organization's junior bantamweight title. In his last fight, he dropped down and took their flyweight title from countryman Jackson Chauke in a very, very impressive second round stoppage. So who is currently the number one in South Africa? Now, Phumelele Chabalala, his fight against the Argentinian, I think it was Junior Zarate, and that was a fight that he won by the skin of his teeth, and there were people that thought the Argentinian did enough to deserve that decision. It was a very close one, and so I think Phumelele Chabalala will still need to win a few more fights before we know how good that junior flyweight is or isn't, you know. So him I wouldn't put in the mix at the moment. Then we've got Thulani Mbenge. Now Mbenge came back very well with two wins, the last being in England against Michael McKinson, and he put up a very good performance. He just banged McKinson around and won that unanimous decision and got his IBO title back. But you know, Thuls Mbenge, he's been on the world level for a while. He's dropped close decisions to Suleiman Sissoko and Sebastian Formella in the past. You know, in the welterweight division, we'll have to see whether he's a fighter or win or two away from cracking the top 10 and being a genuine contender at welterweight. But we'll still have to see. Now we have Ricardo Malajika. Now a lot of people will say, oh, he's rated highly by BOXER. BOXER is a computerized system, to the best of my knowledge. It's great when you have to do matchmaking for tournaments, and because they rank all active fighters in the world. Everybody who's had a fight in the last year is on that rankings in some position. So in the lower echelons, you get an idea of who is where for sort of matchmaking purposes. But you know, boxing doesn't do well on computerized ratings, in my opinion. So I don't take too much into BOXER. I like the Ring rankings, and I'm on the Ring's rating panel, full disclosure. So obviously I prefer that, but I think it's a very good indicator of the quality of boxers. And I also like the Transnational Boxing Rankings Board. That's also a system that's put together by boxing journalists around the world, much the same as Ring system. And you'll see they dovetail often. Now there we've got Phumelela Kafu, who won a WBO title with a split decision against Kosei Tanaka in Japan. And both in the Rings rankings and the Transnational Boxing Board rankings, he's ranked the number 4 contender. There's champion Brandon Bam Rodriguez. He's the champion. He's the guy in the division. And then below him is Fernando Martinez, the Argentinian, the WBA champion. Juan Francisco Estrada and Kazuta Ioka, the veterans, and then slots in Phumelela Kafu. And Ricardo Malajika is ranked number 10 in the Transnational Boxing Rankings Board's rankings. He's on the edge of being in the Rings rankings. His last fight was at flyweight. That's the only thing that kept him out. If he has another fight at 115 pounds, I'm sure he's going to enter the Rings top 10 as well. So that's what we have. So now those are the two there, Phumelela Kafu and Ricardo Malajika. Kevin Lerena, he's got to defend his WBC Bridgerweight title, and he's done a remarkable, he's dabbled at heavyweight after he lost to Daniel Dubois. He did a remarkable comeback, beating a very good Riyad Mehri and Sanat Gashi, and at his last fight he went up to heavyweight and he lost to Justice Hooney. So he is also not, in my opinion, in the mix for the top spot of the best boxer in South Africa right now. He might be in the future. But if we look at, so it leaves us with Ricardo Malajika and Phumelela Kafu. Now, if you have to evaluate fighters, what money they've earned and what the highest purses they've earned, you know, came up in a debate. To me, that's got nothing of assessing the quality of a fighter or who ranks above whom. You know, it is, of course, very important because it's professional sports. But legacy-wise, quality-wise of a fighter, that's got no bearing. Obviously, there's good money in Japan compared to here. Then the other thing is quality of opposition. Who did the fighter fight? And when did he fight them? You know, and when did he fight them? Holds bearing, did he fight them at the tail end of their career or when they were still vital? What did that opponent go on to do afterwards? How did that victory age, in other words? And only after that we can worry about titles, what belt they had, how many weight divisions, quality of opposition, who you fought, when you fought, that is when you fought them, that's paramount. And also the level of your performance when you fought them, the quality of your performance. Now, to give you just an idea of my reasoning, let's look at a fighter we all know here in South Africa. Let's take Brian Mitchell. Two of his great victories. One was when he won the WBA title against Alfredo Lane, and then possibly his greatest victory when he won the IBF title in the second fight against Tony Lopez. If you compare those two victories, you know, I would argue that Tony Lopez is by far the better quality of opponent. There is by far the better victory. If we look at both those wins, the second fight with Lopez and the first fight with Alfredo Lane, he stopped Alfredo Lane. He won that in style. The first Lopez fight was a draw. The second Lopez fight, he put on a boxing clinic. He won that one in style also. Now, which was a better victory? If we look at Alfredo Lane, he had historical significance because he beat Wilfredo Gomez for the linear title, also the ring title at the time, as well as the WBA belt. So he was the guy who beat the man, So he had historical significance. But after Brian beat him, you know, the best he ever did after that was go the distance against Pernell Whitaker, and he never did anything anymore really at the top of boxing. So it's a win that didn't age that well. You can safely say that Alfredo Lane was the Buster Douglas of the junior lightweight division of his time. Now we take the Lopez win. Tony Lopez, after Brian beat him, went up to lightweight and he became world champion again, stopping Joey Gamache. So after that, Lopez became world champion again himself, you know, and he even went the distance against Julio Cesar Chavez. And so that is a win that aged much, much better. That win of Mitchell against Lopez compared to Alfredo Lane one. So you see what I'm saying. the quality of opposition, and then also when you fought them, you know, and what they were able to do afterwards, and the quality of actual performance. Both those fights, both those performances which all were in different ways great performances, but I'd say Lopez was a better quality guy, and he fought him at a much more dangerous time even in Lopez's career. Right, if we look at it like that, and we look at what the streak that Ricardo Malajica is on right now, he's really turned his career around from a guy that lost to Ngebinyana and Ortole. And in his last victories, you know, Kevin Luis Munoz, a useful Argentinian tricky fighter, that's where he won the IBO belt. Defended it against Braithwaite, Marcel Braithwaite, who was a Commonwealth and British champion. So a good European level champion, and his performances were dominant boxing clinics that he put on there. And then Yanga Sirkuibo, we know, went the distance against Kosei Tanaka, and Malajica managed to stop him. And then in his last fight, he blew away Jackson Chauke. Now, if we look at Phumelele Kafu before he went and he fought Kosei Tanaka, if we look at his pedigree up till that point, his best wins were against Genesis Libranza, who gave him some trouble, was a competitive fight, and then against Jackson Chauke in the rematch where he won on points. Before that, he had a draw with Jackson Chauke. Now, his points went over Jackson Chauke aged well, because Chauke went on and won an IBO belt in England against Casey Kadami, which of course he subsequently lost a year later now against Malajica. So Phumelele Kafu's wins against Jackson Chauke, his rematch win against Chauke, aged quite well, because Chauke was able to do something afterwards of significance as well. But that was the best win that Phumelele Kafu had under his belt, was for Chauke win before he fought Kosei Tanaka. So if I have to take Ricardo Malajica where he's at now, and if I have to take Phumelele Kafu before the Tanaka fight, I would say Malajica, I would put him above Phumelele Kafu. His pedigree at the moment is bigger than Kafu's was before the Kosei Tanaka fight. But Kosei Tanaka, that fight in Japan, it did happen, didn't it? And brilliant fight, and Kafu came through with that fight. And we'll see how well the win ages and how well Tanaka performs after this. And we'll also see how well Malajica's win against Jackson Chauke ages. Is Chauke still going to do something after this? Or was it maybe just the swan song, the tail end of his career? But Phumelele Kafu beat Kosei Tanaka, and that was one, it's among a couple of handfuls of really great single wins by South Africa fighters against big overseas stars, like Victor Will against Manuel Ortiz, Gary against Michael Dukes, Mitchell against Tony Lopez, Sugarboy Malinga against Nigel Ben, Corey against Vladimir Klitschko, Vuyani Bungu against Kennedy McKinney. The win over Kosei Tanaka, who was a freeweight WBO world champion, you know, junior flyweight and junior bantamweight, a freeweight title holder, a big name, you know, yes, freeweight world champion, albeit in the four belt era, but it was a very big win for Phumelele Kafu. In terms of a performance, he showed guts, he showed resilience, he showed versatility, but he only just won by the skin of his teeth, albeit against a very high level of opposition. So the future will tell us, but right now, who's the best pound for pound fighter in South Africa? I have to say Phumelele Kafu now, because of the strength of that, not really for the fact that he has the WBO title, and the other thing is just IBO, and nobody recognizes the IBO, but they recognize the WBO, not because of that argument, and not because of the argument that maybe the purses are better in Japan. That holds no bearing in terms of quality. That's good in terms of a business. But that win over a freeweight world champion that Phumelele Kafu scored, unfortunately for Malajica at this moment, trumps what he has done. Yeah, Malajica is on a great winning streak. He's a world-class operator now. I would like to see what he does against Tanaka. I would like to see what he does against Kazuto Ioka or Fernando Martinez, as I would like to see what Kafu does in a rematch with Tanaka or with Martinez, or even a Bam Rodriguez, although I don't think anybody beats Bam at the moment. But, you know, who's the best fighter in the moment in South Africa, pound for pound? So we evaluate their careers. ironically, it is possible that Phumelela Kafu and Ricardo Malajika can actually meet in the ring because they're in the same weight division. Possible, but highly unlikely, because Kafu in Japan is going to make upwards of over $1 million in rand terms, and it's going to be hard to get that kind of money going locally. So, you know, I think it's very unlikely that they will fight. And if they did fight, tell me in the comments, if Phumelela Kafu and Ricardo Malajika fought, who do you got winning and why do you have them winning? For me, I think that's a fight I'd really like to see, Kafu against Malajika, and I think it's an even money fight for me at this time. It can go either way. But anyhow, Kafu's free win over Tanaka at this moment trumps the very good form and victories, in my book, what Ricardo Malajika has had, not by much, but I think Phumelela Kafu is at the moment the #1 fighter in South Africa, with Ricardo Malajika just behind him at the moment. But I've got to go for Kafu. You can't beat that win in Japan over Tanaka. There's not anybody right now in South Africa active that has that kind of win on their ledger, so you've got to go for that. But yeah, that's it. I'm sure it will inspire a lot of debate. Don't get too worked up about it. You know, sometimes one must forget about who you are a fan of, which promotional outfit you like or do not like. Just look at the records and look at the facts on the table and look at the performance on the ring. Use your eyes and then make a call on that. So that's what I think. So until I see you guys again, remember to keep those hands up.